What's up guys, Evasion here and welcome back to another video. In today's video it's going to be an 8.2 Assassination Rogue Guide. It's not nearly going to be as long as my 8.2 Subtlety Rogue Guide, but we're going to get you guys all the information hopefully relatively quickly and efficiently and get you guys back into the game. Without further ado, let's hop straight into the video. Alright, in this video we're going to talk about similar things to the last video. We're going to go over your talents, Azurite traits, essences, trinkets, stat priority, and then I'll kind of give a little bit of an opener rotation that you guys can hopefully utilize in Arena. Another thing to point out too, even though this is a PvP guide, it is definitely based on Arena experience mostly. So if I leave out something that pertains to, say, Raid of Battlegrounds or World PvP, it's because it is kind of an arena-focused guide, but nonetheless, it should help you in pretty much all aspects of PvP. Let's hop straight into the talents. So starting off with the first row of talents here, we have Master Poisoner, Elaborate Planning, and Blindside. Pretty much forget Blindside exists. It's not very good in PvP. You're going to be swapping between Master Poisoner and Elaborate Planning. Me personally, I pretty much always play Master Poisoner for the increased damage on our poisons, which isn't actually that relevant. It's more so for the non-damaging effects increase by 20%. What that's going to do is in PvP, since we're using Wound Poison, which is a good thing to note, Wound Poison normally lowers the healing taken by the target by 25%. If you have Master Poisoner, it's going to make it 30%. It's just a very effective way to apply pressure to the opponent in 3v3 and 2v2. But sometimes if you're playing like Rogue Mage or something like that, where you're going to set up situations where the target's not taking a whole lot of healing when you go in for a kill, Elaborate Planning is going to provide a lot more damage than Master Poisoner does, because I believe both of these talents are rather balanced on DPS, but Master Poisoner would be considering that you are playing with Deadly Poison, which in PvP we don't. So if you need more burst damage for some kind of reason, Elaborate Planning is definitely better. But having the greater slow from your Crippling Poison and the greater healing reduction from Wound with Master Poisoner is definitely the best option in my opinion. Hopping into the next row here, we got Subterfuge. Pretty much the, I would say, mandatory talent here for Assassination. The other talents aren't terrible, but as far as PvP goes, the reason Subterfuge is so good is because it gives you, when you come out of stealth, you can garrote multiple targets and they will get silenced. It also makes it so those garrotes do more damage. In PvP, this is nerfed. It's only a 40% increase instead of an 80% increase, but it is still a lot more extra damage, and it's going to allow you to get more control when you get those re-stealths off. The other talents don't really provide any utility like that, and usually utility is kind of what you want to go for as a rogue in PvP. Night Stalker kind of does a similar effect, like it would give you a slightly more powerful garrote due to the nerf in PvP, but at the end of the day, the utility from being able to garrote multiple people is a lot better. Hopping into the next row here, a lot of people who are newer rogues, they might see Vigor and they want to go for this. It's not terrible if you're going to sit there and run down somebody, but basically you always want to take Mark for Death because it allows you to use Mark for Death Kidney from stealth in a 3v3 setting that is super powerful. You don't always have the luxury of using Garrote and then, you know, building 5 combo points and then using Kidney Shot afterwards, because a lot of the time it's going to be your target running away from your teammates. You yourself might not fall off the target, but having the ability to open with a Mark for Death Kidney straight from stealth is a very, very powerful tool, and it's something that you can't get with the other two talents. That's why I pick this pretty much every game. Next row here, I pretty much only ever use Elusiveness. There's not much reason. Cheat Death is kind of finicky. It's going to screw up on you sometimes and leave you dead anyway. Elusiveness just gives you the most control over a good damage reduction. Feint only has like a 15-second cooldown, so having access to that 30% reduced damage effect is very, very powerful. Not much else to say here. Leeching Poison isn't really that good. If you killed somebody with my HP, like 316k from full to 0, and they didn't really touch you, you'd heal yourself for like, or they didn't really heal, you'd heal yourself for like 30, yeah, like 31k per, yeah, like something like that. Just over 31k health, like it's really not that worth it. It does scale with Master Poisoner though, which is pretty cool to make it 12%, but not really that good. Good for world content though, but it's another video. Internal Bleeding in the next row is, in my opinion, the only viable thing here. Prey on the Weak's nerfed in PvP as Assassin as well, and it only gives 5% damage increase. Even if you were to like 100 to 0 somebody in that kidney shot, the damage increase that you get from Prey on the Weak isn't as good as having this Internal Bleeding, as it gives you probably similar damage, And also it gives you more energy. The energy ticks from internal bleeding do work with your venomous wounds passive, which is how you kind of keep your energy going um, as an assassin rogue. For anybody who's extremely new out there. Um, Hopping into the next row here, we got Toxic Blade. I use Toxic Blade every single game. Have messed around with Exsanguinate a little bit. Its burst is okay, but the long cooldown and it just feels kind of clunky. It's honestly not as good as I kind of had hoped it to be. When this ability first came out, it was insane, but it just got nerfed over and over again. It's not the greatest anymore. Toxic Blade's definitely a lot easier to utilize, and it does pretty decent damage itself, and gives us that. In PvP, it increases our nature damage done to the target by 20% for 9 seconds, which is pretty powerful. It's kind of like having a little mini burst button. So anytime you have this up, you impair it with your kidney shot, and your bleeds up, of course, and you're going to town. For the last row here, we got Poison Bomb, and some people have debated like hidden blades and stuff like that in the past, but I really think it's trash. Just Poison Bomb, all you do is pick it and forget it. Pretty much every time you use Envenom and Rupture, you have a chance to smash a vial on the ground. Can potentially give you some really good extra burst damage when you drop an Envenom. Crimson Tempest, I wouldn't really worry about it either. It's just a AoE finisher, which can find some use in like sustained AoE fights in PvE and stuff like that, but it's also really not that good. I think Poison Bomb is the best, so you should stick with it. Hopping into the honor talents here real quick. We got Relentless as a human. Pretty much always playing Relentless unless I need my Gladiator's Medallion for dealing with something like Blind in a 2v2 setting. I personally don't play a whole lot of Assassin Fire 2v2. I mostly always play sub, but you can do that, and if you were against a mirror, you would probably want to have your Gladiator's Medallion over your Relentless, just so they can't blind sap you for free and kill your mage. But other than that, I am pretty much always playing Relentless. If you're an Orc or an Undead or any other Horde racial that doesn't have the human racial, you're going to want to play the Gladiator's Medallion all the time. I mean, there might be some other niche uses for the others, but it's really not good by comparison. And then for the honor talents, for Smoke Bomb, I pretty much always have this selected. I'm never going to drop Smoke Bomb as an Assassin Rogue. It's very, very powerful. The other ones, you kind of have an option. Okay, so pretty much I have these defaulted. Anytime I'm going to get use at a mind-numbing poison, if I don't, I can swap it to maneuverability. Even against a lot of classes, like even Rep Paladins, if you're hitting them with mind-numbing poison, they don't have a whole lot of spells, but it does do enough damage to warrant using it if you don't feel like you need maneuverability, or you're also using Conflict and Strife, which I'll get into in a second. But I pretty much use these 3 honor talents the entire time. System Shock is not so much for the damage, but the 90% slow is really good. Sometimes there's situations where you'll drop a Envenom during a kidney shot, and that's like, especially if you had 5 points and you go in and drop your kidney shot, they Trinket, and then you use your Mark for Death right there and you get an Envenom. It's going to apply a 90% slow. If that's a situation where they're trying to also get out of your Smoke Bomb where that might happen, it's gonna make them have to work even harder to get out of their Smoke Bomb or your Smoke Bomb, and then it's gonna provide pretty good CC, and also just the little bit extra burst damage kind of helps too. But the one thing you got to make sure of is that you have both your Garrote, Rupture, and your Poisons up when you press your Envenom to get full benefit from this trait, and it has to be casted at 5 points. So also, if you're kind of a small tip, I guess, if you're at 4 combo points, you don't want to be using Mutilate. You want to use either Fan of Knives if it's not going to break anything, or a Poison Knife, just so that you don't waste the energy that you could use on the Mutilate to get that 5th point. As a last note here, honorable mentions for honor talents. Creeping Venom is decent as far as damage goes. It doesn't do very much by comparison to the earlier parts of the expansion, but it's still okay. One thing that this Venom can be really, really good for is if you have 2-stack Battlefield Focus or on your gear. I wonder if I have a piece on me that actually has it. I currently can't select it because of my weird traits, but we got, okay, so if you have Battlefield Precision, Creeping Venom is really good because it ticks very, very fast. It's going to chip through these stacks really quick. Another thing that really does that well is Ignite from Fire Mages, which is something you usually play with, so you don't usually need that yourselves anyway. But it is pretty good for that purpose if you have 2-stack Battlefield Focus. And then the last thing too is Death from Above is kind of troll, but you can use this in a situation to immune CC while you're in the air. You're immune to a lot of stuns and polymorph and stuff like that until you hit the ground again. If you think that you can make good use of it, you could definitely consider using it, but for the most part, I pretty much stick with everything you see on screen here almost every game, bar swapping out mind-numbing poison for maneuverability when it's necessary. Without further ado, let's hop into the next topic here. Alright, hopping into the next thing here. For Azurite traits, you're going to want, okay, ignore what I have selected here. I've been playing this build because I currently don't have exactly what I want to use, and what I'm using right here does work well enough, so I wouldn't worry too much about what your traits are. But at the same time, you want at least one Shroud of Suffocation so that when you press Garrote from Stealth, it's going to give you 3 combo points. The damage from this is okay, but I wouldn't worry about stacking this because you'd probably prefer to have traits that are going to be active more frequently for those times that you can't get re-stealths in PvP. Because once you get higher ratings, people will do a lot better job to stop you from re-stealthing, and you'll get less value from this. So just having the 1 for the 3 combo points is going to give you a lot more powerful openers. And then the other trait that you want to stack is you want to have 3 Twist the Knife. So what this trait does is pretty much per combo point, your Envenom is going to do more damage. Other than that, it just makes the buff that you get when you cast your Envenom 1 second longer if it crits. That part isn't as important as the damage increase. The reason why it's so good is it has a comparable DPS value to a lot of the other traits, but in situations where you're going for a kill, a lot of the time you're going to get 2 Envenoms off, and I believe that kind of skews how powerful it is, and it's going to kind of make it the most powerful trait. Not to mention that, you know, just having more finisher damage is generally a good thing for a rogue. And then other than this, okay, so I have been running this triple double dose talent. It is okay on paper, but sometimes you'll get like really poor uptime, or you won't be able to, you just won't get lucky, and it's not that great. But in most games where, like, if you're sitting on a Destro Warlock or something like that, you can get a decent DPS value from this trait. So if you're stuck using bad traits, I do recommend trying out something like this. Where this trait really shines, though, is when you get to sit there and train a target, because after you use Envenom, you're going to get a buff that makes it so your poison application chance shoots through the roof, and you're going to get this trait proccing a lot more. And in situations like that, this trait is definitely comparable to the Envenom trait. However, I recommend that most of you guys just stick with Twist the Knife times 3 and getting 1 Shrouded Suffocation. I would also, if I had the right traits, I would definitely go for 2 Battlefield Precision with the headpiece and the shoulders of the PvP gear, and then try to get like a Shrouded Suffocation on my chest, which would leave me using, I believe it's Nothing Personal and Battlefield Precision on the headpiece of the piece of gear I'm talking about, and then the shoulder would be Twist the Knife and Battlefield Precision. Then I would try to get a Shrouded Suffocation and a Twist the Knife chest piece. That's pretty much all for that. Hopping into the next thing, we're going to talk about essences here real quick. So in 8.2, we got some essences, and what they are is if you shift right click your neck when you unlock this, you have to do this long quest chain. You have to unlock Najatar, and then you get a summons from Magni, and you do a little quest chain for him. Hopefully most of you guys have completed that at the time of watching this video, but if you haven't, you're going to want to do that because it's going to unlock all this stuff for you. As soon as you unlock it, the first one you get is going to be Crucible Flame, and the way you upgrade this one is simply by leveling up your necklace, and it's going to be one of the most powerful ones. Personally, my favorite to use, I'm going to list 2 builds, kind of like I did in the subtlety video. I like to use Crucible Flame rank 3. The burst damage this thing adds for assassin rogues, and the fact that our rotation is slower, it's a lot easier to use. So I might have said in the subtlety video that I don't like using it as much because it's hard to fit into the rotation. It works amazing for assassin, and it's very, very easy to throw in. So most of the time using Crucible of Flame rank 3, and then for my other minor slot here, I'm using Memory of Lucid Dreams. So I have the chance to fund that energy. Getting refunds on mutilates and stuff like that is very, very good, and getting the extra versatility from the rank 3 proc is also super good. If you were to play against something like RMP where you're going to be stunned a lot, you might want to consider using the Conflict and Strife so you get that greater defensive benefit when you're stunned, instead of the Crucible Flame. And also when I get level 65, I could add the Conflict and Strife minor to the slot. And or if I got the Condensed Life Force rank 3, I would put the minor there as well. But other than that, I'm pretty much always going to be using these traits unless they get nerfed. I really, really like those, and I recommend them. Alright, next we'll hop into Trinkets here. Got to talk a little bit about this. There's not a whole lot of options. A lot of the time you can just use Safeguard and Maledict and just kind of forget about it. But also lately, I actually don't have it on me. It's in the bank still. I've been playing alt rogue that I've been using it. Alright. So we got the Notorious Gladiator's emblem here. I personally think this is better than Safeguard because it increases your maximum HP by a similar amount. It's not dispellable, lasts 20 seconds, and it has half the cooldown of the proc rate of Safeguard. The downside is that if you don't press it and you're using it instead of Safeguard, you're looking like a chump out there, and you don't want to do that. So basically, I think this thing's better. What it does is if you use it and increase your max HP, it's going to make your Crimson Vial heal for more. Kind of gives you a more sturdy defense. And in my opinion, that's like, I don't know, it's way better. You can even try to use it differently. Instead of, obviously, when Safeguard happens, it's because you're low health. You can try and use the other one preemptively when you go into a burst. And then use your Vial when you get out of it. And it's going to be a pretty strong defense. I don't see a lot of people really using Emblem too much as a defensive option, but I think it's very, very good as well. So you could consider it if you don't personally like Safeguard a whole lot. But for the most part, guys, you're going to want to use Maledict. And if you're using Maledict, your teammates better be using Maledict, or it's kind of a waste of your time. If you're only using one Maledict, you got to really pay attention to when you press it. You want to try and CC the enemy people who dispel, like the healers, before you're pressing it. Otherwise, it's going to get dispelled off, and it's going to be a waste. The perk of having multiple is even if a situation like that arises, one of your teammates simply just throws his, or you throw yours after theirs gets dispelled, and vice versa, and you're going to get that really, really powerful healing reduction. Alright, stat priority, we got haste. Okay, so my stats for assassination are not that great currently, just because of gear RNG. I don't have very much versatility because of my trinket choices. If I switch these, it kind of sells a little bit more. Basically, you want to go for haste, and then you want to go for either mastery or versatility. Personally, I like versatility better this patch because what versatility does is if you're using Crucible Flame, it increases the on-use effect of this. It makes it do more damage, so it kind of has a better value for DPS than it previously did last patch when we didn't have the necklace stuff. And in that situation, I liked Haste Mastery better. Mastery is still really good and gives more damage, but the other reason too that versatility is better in PvP is just that you get that damage reduction, and it scales really, really well in a game where you're going to need to swap to Conflict and Strife. You're going to get more versatility, it's going to make you take less damage when you're stunned, and it's really, really good. So Haste, Versatility, and then Mastery, and then Crit is probably worth the least. So just my stats are kind of a poor example of what you should go for. It's just because of gear RNG and me trying to have higher item level that I'm not able to have perfect stats yet. But with a stat build like this, I still do a ton of damage. And you know, you don't have to worry about it too much. As long as you're getting some haste, having at least probably 20 to 22% haste is the most important in my opinion, because it's going to make your bleeds tick faster. The faster they tick, you're going to get more venomous wounds procs, which is going to keep your energy more healthy and keeping the rotation feeling more fun and less like slow and clunky. But that's pretty much all there is to say about that, guys. Let's hop into the last thing here. We'll give you guys a little bit of a rotation. Alright, here we are at the training dummy here. We're going to give you guys a quick opener. It's going to be a standard opener. It's not going to be a Mark for Death kidney opener. We'll cover that in a second. Basically, with any assassin opener, you just want to get up both your bleeds and then throw the target into a kidney shot. So if you just go like Garrote, Mutilate, Rupture, Mark for Death kidney, they're going to be silenced into a stun the entire time. And then, you know, you can use your Crucibles, your Toxic Blade if they're going to actually get bursted really hard. But anyway, let's show you guys a quick Mark for Death opener. If I was just going to go in, just use Mark for Death, get up my dots, press my Toxic Blade, my Crucible, build for 5 points again. I have to use another Poison Knife so I can get 5 points from that. And then you just keep, you know, rebuilding, keeping your poison on the target. A thing I did there that you don't want to do is you want to be sure that when you come at a stealth with your Garrote and you have a more powerful Garrote, you do not want to refresh it before it ends. With the out of stealth Garrote, as it's going to lower the damage that you get from it. Something you definitely don't want to do. And then another thing too, when you're playing Crucible or Concentrated Flame, make sure you're paying attention to your buff so you know how many stacks you got. It can definitely help you set up for a kill if you're aware that you're on your 2-stack one. It hits like incredibly hard. That was only the 2-stack. Here's the most powerful one right here for you, those of you guys that don't actually have it. That's probably in PvP it doesn't crit that hard. You'll probably get like maybe a 60k if you have really good versatility. But other than that, guys, I think that's going to do it for this video. I know it was a little bit quicker than the sub guide, but definitely has a lot of valuable information. Hopefully you guys can find some use from it. And I'm pretty excited for Classic later in the day, and I'm definitely going to try and stream a lot of my leveling process, so be sure to go over to twitch.tv/evasionx, check it out. We'll definitely be streaming some of that. But till next time, guys, like, comment, subscribe for more, and thanks for watching.